Hello everybody, my name is Kai, and welcome back to Warframe. Today we'll be taking a look at the Incarnon pistol, the Laetum. And that means that you will need to have access to the Chrysalith to acquire it from Cavallero. Once you do though, it is actually the easiest of the 5 Incarnon weapons to actually obtain, being the first weapon that you get access at rank 1 and its requirements being very light, that being 1 Void Plume Pinion, which are acquired from Void Angels, Quills, Voidgel Orbs, and Ferrite. You should have absolutely no trouble getting this weapon very early on. A Pinion is also given to you for free for completing the introductory quest, which makes it even easier. About the actual Laetum itself though, it is widely regarded as the best Incarnon weapon in the entire game. The Fenmore and the Felarx are both really good, but the Laetum has absolutely no issues scaling to level cap on its own, which is something that the Felarx and the Fenmore just really can't do, even with no outside buffs. If you're a big fan of weapons like the Exceltra or the Sepulchrum, the Laetum are literally those guns but on crack. Both its Incarnon form and its normal form, as you can see, pack a serious punch, and it competes for best weapon in the game in my eyes. And it's a secondary. In terms of other secondaries, it is by far the strongest of all of them. Most of that is due to its evolutions though, so why don't we actually get to covering those. Again, at Cavallero in the Chrysalith, all you need to do is go and speak to him. You do not need to have the weapons equipped, but I do right now. Starting off with the first evolution, this just grants you access to the Incarnon form, so not really much to choose from here. But getting to Evolution 2, the first perk is Marksman's Hand, which reduces weapon recoil. With this perk, recoil on the Laetum is much less noticeable and makes it a lot more usable compared to without it, as normally it has a very high kick. Rapid Wrath, on the other hand, grants you plus 20% fire rate. Now this is technically a DPS increase, but I find this fire rate to be not needed. The Laetum, in both its Incarnon and non-Incarnon, already shoots fast enough, and you will burn its meter very quickly when using this perk, as the other fire rate bonuses on the build are just more than enough. Raptor's Chase, on the other hand, is absolutely terrible. Don't know why this was a thing. Do not use it. The first perk of the third evolution is Lethal Rearmament, which states that on headshots you gain reload speed. This is a very useful trait because other than the actual reload of the weapon, it dictates how fast you transform into the Incarnon form. With no stacks on this buff, the transformation takes long and interrupts your gameplay. But at maximum stacks, the transformation is much quicker and less interrupting to your gameplay. Also, transforming out is quicker too. And of course, the base reload of the Laetum is lightning fast as well. Awakened Readiness grants you magazine reloaded per second when holstered, but this only affects the normal form of the Laetum and not the Incarnon. All of these perks do that, but what makes the Rearmament so good is that it decreases the amount of time in between switching them. This doesn't do that, and you're not really going to be using many other weapons when using the Laetum because it is so strong. Feather of Justice grants you ammo efficiency while aim gliding or sliding for only the base form of the Laetum. Compared to the other two perks, this one is easily the worst. Evolution 4 grants us some very interesting perks, the first of those being the very strong Kaput Mortem. This gives you headshot damage, which is a very rare stat to find in Warframe, very similar to Primary Deadhead, and it gives even more than that. Headshot damage is very strong, but due to the nature of how the Incarnon form works, which most people want to be using, I don't use this trait very often. But if you want to push your Laetum's damage to level cap numbers, you definitely want to use this. It just requires a little bit more focus during your gameplay. Incarnon Efficiency, on the other hand, means that headshots build 50% more Incarnon transmutation charge. If you didn't know, you need to get headshots to build a meter. Body shots do nothing, but when I headshot this gunner, you can see I almost get half my bar. You can go into Incarnon form without a full bar, but you get less bullets, which means less time. Multi-shot numbers affect the amount of Incarnon charge you can build with a single trigger pull. So more multi-shot paired with this trait means that with almost 3 shots you can build your entire bar if you're lucky. The more pellets, the more charge. The final perk for Evolution 4 trades 10% critical chance for plus 20% status chance. This makes a little bit more sense when we go over the first perk of Evolution 5, Devouring Attrition. This perk is also featured on the Felarx and the Fenmore and is what makes them so strong. Here on the Laetum, it states that you have a 50% chance to deal plus 2000 damage on non-crits. Every time you don't get a crit, you have a 50% chance to do this. And this is very good and what makes those other two weapons good. But compared to the other option unique to the Laetum, it falls a little behind. Overwhelming Attrition is unique to the Laetum and states that on a hit that does not crit or apply a status effect, you gain plus 400% damage for 10 seconds, which stacks up to 3 times, giving you a total of 1200% damage. Now compared to Overwhelming Attrition, this is base damage, but what makes this perk so much better than the other one is that this does affect crits on the Laetum, which means that you can build the Laetum for crits compared to the Felarx and the Fenmore, because this 1200% base damage, while not multiplicative, is then multiplied by whatever your crit multiplier is when you hit a crit. All you need to do is not hit a crit or a status effect to get this, which you will see in a moment is very easy to do. Every individual bullet from the multi-shot stat applies statuses and crits individually, which means that you only need a couple trigger pulls to get the full effects of this very easily. Against these gunners, you can see in the top right that it only takes me 5 shots in total to get the full stacks of overwhelming attrition. You will obviously keep these up as they are refreshable if you're shooting enemies. And like I said earlier, the extra 1200% base damage here is of course affected by crits, which is what makes it stronger than devouring attrition's plus 2000% multiplicative damage. This means that on the build, we can actually build for crit through the use of Creeping Bullseye and Target Cracker. Use Prime Target Cracker if you have it, and while I do have Primed Pistol Gambit, I just use Creeping Bullseye as I don't feel like wrecking this up right now. Galvanized Diffusion is here because more multi-shot is more damage, but more multi-shot also means you have a higher likelihood of not critting or applying a status effect in a single trigger pull, which means you get to keep up your buff of overwhelming attrition. The end of the bullet on the Laetum has an explosion that does have an AoE. This is not affected by gun CO, as when it was incredibly busted. Lethal Momentum in the Exilus slot is such a great QOL mod for this gun that I almost would say it's necessary. Without the mod, your bullets have a fairly long travel time, and it gets really annoying when you're shooting at things and they just don't die instantly. With the mod on though, it feels a lot better. It is still not perfect and the bullets do still have a decent amount of travel time, but I find this one to be almost necessary, as normal gameplay without it, you're just waiting for things to die when they should already be dead. And finally, we are using Secondary Deadhead as our arcane. Now you might be wondering, why use this, which needs headshots, and not use Kaput Mortem? The reason I'm using this is because of the negative 50% to weapon recoil. We are using the trait that gives away 40% of that, but that paired with Deadhead fully removes most of it, showcasing it without it, and it has significantly more kick. But besides that, this also just gives you more headshot multiplier, which obviously would stack really well with Kaput Mortem, but the nature of how you play with the Laetum is more spray and pray AoE and not carefully aiming at heads. Showcasing the actual build though, it's pretty much already one-shotting these gunners, but fully building the Incarnon meter, it still does the same, except now it has an AoE and obviously shoots much faster. This is literally just one of the strongest weapons in the game, no competition about it. Combining that with a grouping ability like Airburst, and you get stupid damages like that. One more time in case you blinked and you missed it, you just, shoot a couple times and they all die. This actually brings me to one of my favorite synergies on Zephyr, which is already a very strong frame, with the Airburst rounds augment, which states that every enemy hit by Airburst increases your weapon damage by 40% for 14 seconds. This stacks up to 500% base damage. This is like having another 500% base damage on your Laetum. Paired with her passive, which gives you more critical chance while in the air, you can do some absolutely stupid things with this weapon. Combining the augment with the passive, and it pushes the Laetum's damage farther than I can even show you here. In actual gameplay too, it also happens to be one of the best Acolyte killers, alongside being amazing for Liches and Sisters. Its AoE nature just makes it an absolute nightmare for all enemies, including big crowds. The Laetum is just seriously one of the best weapons in the entire game. It's the first weapon you get when you get to the Zeraman, and it is easily the strongest of all of them. Obviously, you can make builds with the other non-crit perk, but I don't really see the use in showing that because this one is just clearly so much stronger, even if its damage is just base. The normal form of the Laetum also puts in work, one-shotting all of these targets here, but the Incarnon form is what you really want to be using because its AoE nature and its just higher damage in general just makes it a lot better. It's also just ridiculously satisfying to use, and it absolutely melts Eximus units, as you just saw. That's going to be it for this Laetum build, everybody. The Laetum, like I just said, is literally the strongest Incarnon weapon of all of them, and in my opinion, while not being as fun to use as the Fenmore for me, because who doesn't love a big minigun, it's just better, and I don't really show like level cap runs, but if you want to take the Laetum to level cap, you can. It's just that strong. Obviously, you want to change some of your evolutions around to like Kaput Mortem and stuff like that, but besides that, amazing weapon. And I would just like to say thank you so much for watching this video and for subscribing if you are or if you have. We just hit 3,000 very recently, and yeah, that's a crazy thing for me to say. You guys have just been treating me so incredibly well. I will be live tonight, probably around 11:30, 12 a.m. So just come around and hang out with me if you'd like to. But besides that, I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.